So hello, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in today. This is a very dear early riser, fellow early riser friend of mine, Tim Rudolph, and we're here to just really kind of see where our conversation guides us. And if any of you already know Tim, you know that he is a master of wisdom and also giggles. So, yeah, Tim, take it away. Please introduce yourself.
Good morning, Catherine. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever we are in the world. Um, my name is Tim, and I'm just here to chat a little bit. I'm a member of a long-term member of a 12-step fellowship, and I'm on the journey to become the best version of myself that I can be today. And ultimately, I guess that's what we'll talk about, the journey, right? Because we're all on a particular journey to each of us. No journey is exactly the same, um, but yet we don't differ from one another that much. I think we're all seeking to be that best version of ourselves on any given day. So I guess we'll talk about that today. What do you say, Catherine?
Yeah, that sounds great. Before I started the camera on, I was talking about yesterday that I had taken a really long time to do a project, finish a video, and I was talking to Tim about my perfectionism and wanting this production to be perfect and a little bit of beating myself up in the process, to make sure that I was, looking at the camera, that I covered all of the information, that I got my point across. And so Tim is a master of explaining and working with many, many people on this idea of perfection. So Tim, please share your masterful wisdom.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the master label. I'm not sure if I've achieved that yet. I am uh, another person seeking recovery, right? Recovery from life is really what it comes down to for me. I remember a dear friend of mine called me a guru once, and I had heard before, if you look at the word guru, right, and you look at the exact spelling of it, it is G, you are you, and that's the thing about I guess wisdom. Um, is it's just a self-awareness, a self-understanding, and acceptance of who you truly are at your core. And that's not that's easy for me to say and not so easy to do. Um, uh, I'm a firm believer in the serenity prayer. When people talk, the serenity prayer is all about, asking our higher power to grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, which is many of the things around us. We have an impact on certain things around us, but ultimately, the second line is the courage to change the things we can, which is ourselves and our immediate life, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I think that's the most important wisdom we can attain is is where we end and others begin. And as a recovering person, I have before I found recovery, I had a tendency to try to impose my will on other people. And because I had an idea in my head, I had an expectation that I knew what was best for them, even if they didn't know it. And what I've come to understand on this path of recovery is I barely know what's good for me. So how could I possibly know what's good for another human being? That's where my relationship with my higher power, the God of my understanding, or as I like to say, the God of my misunderstanding, uh, that's where it begins, is that relationship is the most important relationship in my life. That surrender. Uh, um, it's I'm sorry, I get reflective at times when I talk about this, um, that journey to you through the step process. It's a journey to humility. It's not a journey to perfection. Um, what I had to accept for me in my life today is that I'm a human being and human beings are flawed, right? We're, it's just who we are. Um, we're not going to be perfect. We don't achieve perfection. We are perfectly imperfect. We're going to make mistakes. Now, don't get me wrong. There are aspects of each and every one of us where we're intelligent, where we can be well trained, and we can do something, individual tasks, very near perfection, very nearly perfect, right? But in every area of our lives, we will not. I don't believe, I haven't encountered it yet, achieve perfection in every area, right? I do some things extraordinarily well and other things not so much. And that's where I have to give my I have to give myself a break. I have to remind myself that I will not be perfect in everything I do, and I have to practice self-forgiveness as a result.
Right. And that's for me, that's really when I do ask, my higher power when it's too much, and I think like you and I coming into one another's lives and how we're gonna work together in the future, without going into too much detail, it's really in many ways an answered prayer. And you mentioned, and we do. We I if you everyone knows I talk a lot about we get what we ask for. So,
Mm.
and admitting that is such a self acceptance of, of humility, which is what you mentioned. And I read a quote yesterday by C.S. Lewis around humility, and I can't remember completely off the top of my head, but it's not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking more, more of yourself, not putting yourself down, but then in order, that's my dog, sorry. He more of your when you start to think more of yourself, then you have actually more to give others and more to support others. And you really, for me, I come into a place of just overflow when I'm in humility, when I'm in, the grace of and the charity, let's put it that way, of my God of my understanding, then I'm able to connect with others and really give them from a place to a place where it's not really about me.
I think you're absolutely right. Now, I don't know if I also have a quote on humility similar to that, but it's humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less,
Right, exactly. That,
right?
and I think that is the exact same quote.
Yeah. And and it's not um you're absolutely right. It is ultimately you end up thinking more of yourself because you actuate more of you in your selflessness, in your strive to give back what was so freely given to you. You know, humility is about self-acceptance, self-awareness, and self-understanding. It's not about putting on airs and developing a persona. It's about being authentic,
Right.
and that's the difficulty with so many people. Well, I can't talk about so many people. I have to talk about me. Yeah,
So
my
many people and
difficulty is
me.
yeah, I want to be I want to be accepted and loved by everyone, and I want to be part of and belong to everything. And so in my in my drive toward that complete total acceptance, I sometimes lose myself because I begin to put on those personas that will ingratiate me with everyone. And in that process, I lose the authentic Tim. I lose me in that process, right? And the thing, it's not to do some my behavior, I need to be true to myself. I need to be as genuine as possible. And it's not that I disregard people liking or disliking me. It's the fact that I can only, if I'm not true to myself, how can I be real to anybody else? How can I be there for anyone else if I can't be there for me? Right. And so there's a phrase, we can only keep what we have by giving it away. And what my higher power instills in me is that sense of completeness. We there's um there's this decision-making process that I've struggled with over the years. Whether I'm making the right decision, the wrong decision, is it God's will or my will? That sort of thing. It's a 12-step thing.
Mhm.
But I think everybody
Yeah,
encounters this.
right.
Am I doing the right thing for the right reason? And for me, it's head, heart, and gut, right? Those three things are what means is my barometer for my decision-making process. And if all three of them are in alignment, I'm probably doing the right thing, right? If one of those three are out of alignment, then it's probably my will. I'm trying to impose my will on a situation, or I'm making a decision for an ulterior motive. Again, we're not seeking perfection here, but I try to do the next right thing for the right reason,
Right.
not for ulterior motives. Although there are no I don't think any motives are absolutely pure. I don't think we can, that's
Yeah.
um
For our audience, can you talk about more for you, and I'll also share like what it feels like when you are in alignment and when you're not in alignment, because sometimes the decisions that we make are reminders, like, oh, no, that doesn't work for me, or stepping, with boundaries and different kinds of things. And a lot of times alignment's like a very, it's a new, trendy term. And just really understanding what, because I connect being out of alignment with suffering, right? And with not feeling in alignment, for me feels like, this isn't what I want. I'm making a decision or considering making a decision, a choice that's going to, or maybe I have, that's either it's going to take me in alignment. And what that looks like for me is pain, is whether it's physical pain, whether it's emotional pain, where I sense a disconnection with my higher power, and it's emotional. And can kick up sometimes, pretty intense emotions. And then it's
mhm,
really important to stay, to reach out to trusted sources, to people in your life, in my life, to stay in alignment so that I don't go or get back into alignment, my heart,
mhm,
my mind and my gut, as you say, so that I don't go off and make another decision that's going to knock me even more, off of my game, so to speak, and being in this, idea of who I'm becoming, consistently the best version of myself.
good point. It There are consequences to our decision-making process. Part of discovering alignment is we will make mistakes. We will make poor decisions. The sooner that we discover to be pardon me.
No, you're fine.
What are the consequences of a poor decision on my part? Anyway, what I was saying was we will make decisions that are that the motives behind them are not pure. Um, Instant gratification, self-gratification, that
Right.
sort of thing. Um, but what I have to stay, I use the term be vigilant, right? To stay aware. Sometimes a decision portrays itself as the right thing to do, and that's okay. What I struggle with is knowing the difference between God's will and my will. All right. Um, That being said, my will, it may be a good decision, but it's a good decision in the short term, whereas God's will is usually more far-reaching. It has a bigger picture connotation than my will. I can't see the bigger picture. My vision is limited,
I was gonna say
right?
that, yeah.
Right? So when I'm making decisions based in my will, although it might be good, it might be a good decision for the moment, it won't bear fruit. It won't be as fruitful as a decision that I make based in my higher power's will for me. And that's a long-term plan, a long-term strategy, as opposed to a short-term quick fix, that instant gratification that we seek often, right? Because we want to feel good now. We want to feel good. We want to feel good about ourselves and about. It's difficult to to hold off on that gratification because for many of us, that's what we seek. For those of us in recovery, that's often what drives our the disease, however our disease manifests, you know, whether it's food or gambling or, whatever area of our life seems to be most impacted by that, by our, whatever manifestation our disease takes. That's the best way to describe it. So, making those decisions, tapping into the resources available to me, which is a higher power, a sponsor, a support group, you know, making a better informed decision is always what I'm seeking,
Right.
right? Because left to my own devices, I can be flawed and I can make a bad decision after bad decision, or I can make a not as good decision. But when I tap into my resources and allow my higher power to speak through, um, that's why we have each other. I believe that's why we have each other in our lives, because there's a spiritual connection on a visceral level with all of us, whether we choose to not acknowledge it or not.
Hmm.
And it's that internal pathway, like seeking God outside of ourselves when actually God is within us. The
Right.
spirit of our higher power resides within us. And that is the pathway toward our connection, because that's where we all connect through that gut, um, visceral connection.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and I was just thinking too, it's learning to be discerning around who the sources are in our lives,
Mm,
and a lot of times, you and I both work with people around around setting a lot of boundaries and changing their lives in very, powerful ways. And it's really about starting to be discerning and setting boundaries and really looking to not, what did you say, people, places, and things
mm,
that are supportive and not where, as you said, the quote unquote disease in us lies, whether it's, codependency, whether it's, addiction, which is, a form of addiction, where these behaviors lie, is really, and it's really seeking support and seeking help. And, that's one of my missions is to sometimes the most difficult step is for asking for help, asking for outside. Hey, because we have the rational and the irrational mind, right? And it's like,
mhm.
and sometimes we're making irrational decisions and we really don't even realize it because to us, it's a rational thing until like the pain is too much or the suffering is too much, until something happens in our external reality many times we don't like it. And like,
Right.
and that's when we start to say, okay, well, maybe this thing, in order to be this best version of me, I need to make some changes. And I know we talk a lot too about it's not the change, it's the resistance.
Yeah.
Change is
Yes.
inevitable. One of the long time ago, a man that I dated told me, he said, change is the one constant.
Yeah.
And it's true, but it's our resistance, especially when it's a change like we want to make, when it regards to our relationships and which is everything, our relationship to money, food, our relationship to our bodies, all of the things that are significant partners. So,
Yeah, one of my daily readings today was all about change is not our problem, it is our resistance to change, right? And I think I was I was kind of dancing around it earlier, but I'll get more to the point. When our decision-making process, um, is it based in fear or is it based in faith? You
mm,
see, when I'm making decisions based in fear, ultimately I will make the wrong decision because I'm not making a decision based on what's good for me. I'm making decisions on what's not bad for me,
right.
right? It's like all of a sudden my decision making is flawed right from the get-go, right from the beginning, because I'm not focused on long-term potential. I'm focused on short-term uh negativity,
Yeah,
right?
a fix. I mean,
Yeah.
we can do a lot of different things just to get a fix, and that to me is definitely when I'm in my own ego, let's per se, as opposed to, yeah, being in faith.
Mhm. Yeah, it's fear. There's a lot of acronyms around fear, right? Forget everything, forget everything and run, or
Yeah,
forgive everything and recover, right?
right.
Um,
Because
and that's really
fear
what I
is
try.
useful. I always say, I'm like, we need fear. But when we identify in our fear, when it becomes our identity, then
Yeah.
that's when it's very painful.
Well, fear is a natural human trait.
Mhm.
Fear is important to have. It's the irrational fear that gets us. When I say, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? Well, how am I going to deal if so and so dies or I lose my job? So it's the fear of projection. We're projecting and anticipating a negative outcome instead of living in the moment and allowing and doing the footwork and allowing things to unfold. We've gone far beyond where we are to where all of a sudden we're in a scenario that very well may not occur, but yet we're making our decision in this moment based on that, based on something that very well may not happen. It like when we fear death, death is a logical end to life, right?
Mhm.
Death is inevitable. So to be afraid of death is a hindrance. It's a block for us to live. It's a block to our life,
Right,
right? And I don't want to get into a whole death conversation here. I'm just saying in that projection
right,
of a fear-based projection, we limit ourselves in the moment. We limit our decision-making process to how much I want to feel good right now, right now, right now, instead of allowing life to unfold and do the footwork.
right.
Because if we do the footwork now, when life does show up, we will be prepared for it.
Yeah, a lot of what, fear of death is grief, is unresolved grief, and when you really start to allow emotions and allow grief and allow, deeper feelings to surface,
Hmm.
then it really offers, we've both seen it. It's a magical phenomenon when we can really let go of these emotions that really attach to fear and make fear much grander and larger than it really is, so that we can evolve, so that we can grow and make connections and meet more people and make more money or whatever it is that we want from our lives, and have the good feelings in our bodies consistently, that is really can be so easily taken away by our short-sighted decisions for that fix in the moment, right? That
Hmm.
sets us back. So yeah, I mean, I working with people's emotions and really what's really happening, because a lot of times what we're really afraid of is just facing what's happening in our lives And once we do that, it's really not, it's not that scary anymore when we have, you know, a supportive network of other human people that are willing to embrace us and say, hey, you know, you're doing great, but don't go do that.
Yeah.
And then listening, that's the hard part, is integrating, saying, well, I know you just told me, you know, as a coach and sponsor, you know, when you say don't go do that, it's really up to us to say, I'm going to take that advice and I'm not going to seek out intensity and I'm not going to seek out the thrill anymore. And I'm just going to get quiet and really have faith that there is a higher power, God of my understanding and misunderstanding, right? That I'm, you know, diligently going to commit to, because that's really what our rescue is, if you want to even use that word, from any fear of death, that, you know, our purpose is here. We're here for a reason.
Well, yeah, I like I said, I didn't want to make it all about fear of death. What I'm saying is fear of failure, even to
Right.
put it a little more, but if we stay in the moment and we do the footwork and we allow life to unfold, the thing is not to attach ourselves to an outcome, is to allow ourselves to be flexible and
Yeah.
to be open to the possibility that that outcome may not occur, but we still strive towards it, but allow ourselves the freedom to adjust and adapt to life as it occurs, because that's what life does. Life shows up and changes things. So we have to be flexible enough to 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 use an old go with the flow, right? To move and change to bend with the wind, whatever phrase you want. We
Right.
have to be able to adapt, all right? Because if we're locked and loaded on one goal and we try to beat our way through life to get to that goal, it causes pain and unmanageability,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, for ourselves and others.
Yeah.
You know, and I think admitting that, you know, we've talked about this before too, is that, you know, really being being in a version of ourselves where we're not causing harm to others, right? And making
Well,
amends.
many people wonder, sorry, um, many people wonder what God's will is for them. And I don't always know what God's will is for me, but I always know what God's will isn't for me. And that is to cause myself and others harm. So I do the best I can in the moment to be as loving and caring and kind and compassionate and forgiving to
Mhm.
myself and to others. Um, I'm not saying that I allow other people to walk over me or to cause me harm, but I don't go out of my way to be vindictive or to actively seek to harm someone else. That is never my intent, and that seems to work for me. If I just focus, um, one of my former sponsors shared with me, it's better to be kind than right. And I spent most of my life trying to be right about everything. Because if I was wrong, I was invalidated, right? If you dismissed what I believed in, then you were dismissing me.
Right.
And and the point is being right is not that important. I stand on I stand up for what I believe in, but I can allow you to believe what you want to believe too.
Right.
So two ideas can coexist in the same space. Two opposing ideas
Right.
can coexist in the same space without invalidating either or.
Right. And I agree with that, because, you know, in my experience, when I go into anger, for example, if I'm disagreeing, then I take myself out. I take myself out of my purpose. I take myself out of the best version of me, of what I'm working on. And really anger doesn't erect change. And I can't fix someone else. I can't
Mhm.
change their opinion. What I can truly believe in is what I think, feel, and say, and act and do, and, you know, is, you know, in alignment. But getting angry and being able to accept, as you know, we've talked about before, accept, have patience,
Hmm.
these things, and tolerance are really what keep us, grounded and self-assured and in our own alignment. If we go back to that word that we talked about at, the beginning when we were chatting, and being
Hmm.
able to set these boundaries that, yeah, people are going to have other opinions than me, and me losing my mind is me losing my mind. It's not it's not erecting any kind of significant support or help for anyone else. It's really me. The true harm that I'm doing is to my own heart and to my own mind and to my own being and purpose on this planet.
Yes, for me, when it comes, if I'm so busy defending my ideas, it's out of fear.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, I'll talk about it before recovery. I was always afraid that you were going to invalidate me, that my ideas were well, the word is invalidated. I can't really go any and use any other word than that. But the way I defended that was through self-righteousness. I would be closed mind. It's like you can't invalidate me. And then my argument would be self-righteous in nature, or be arrogant in nature. That was my self-defense.
Oh yeah.
But that's a byproduct of fear.
Yeah.
Just like low self-esteem and is all a byproduct of fear. So,
And for me, I would go into being a victim. I would take it
right,
one step further and go into everyone's against me. I mean, I wasn't consciously aware of this
right.
at the time, right? But I would go into like, that person, I can't be around that person. And, I'm a victim and everyone's against me. And,
Mhm.
people are scary and all these things that I was, and it's a part of our culture, and it's a part of, I don't blame anyone for it, but I am definitely part, as we are part of the solution of bringing people into a more empowered mindset
Right.
where they can stay in this power. Because when we go into, that I'm a victim and they're after me and the world is against me, it's a very, hands tied behind my back way of thinking.
Well, we've come full circle now because that fear is closed-mindedness. Closed-mindedness, that's a defense mechanism. It's like, oh, yeah, I'm gonna ignore you now because you don't believe in me. That person hates me, whatever that may be. But the essence of humility is open-mindedness and remaining teachable, recognizing that I'm not the be all end all, that what I believe, may be open or up for revision, right? I have to, humility is ultimately just having a realistic version of myself, a realistic idea of who I truly am, knowing that I'm not perfect, right? And that somebody else may have a better idea than me. Somebody else may have a better course of action for me to take.
Yeah, I'm like, is my thinking, feeling, and behavior contributing to my unhappiness?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Remaining teachable is absolutely essential
Mhm.
to life, you know?
Yeah, life is school, right?
Yeah. We have a lot of lessons to learn.
We do. Many more to come, I'm sure.
Hopefully,
Yeah,
hopefully.
hopefully. Yeah, God willing, right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Tim. And I can't thank you enough. And for, for anyone listening, stay tuned, much more to come from us. And little does he know. And thanks again, Tim. And I hope everybody has a great day. And and drop a comment to us. Let us know what you think, your thoughts. We're more than open and willing to support you in whatever you're working on. And we look forward to hearing from you. So thanks again.
Namaste.
Namaste.